right. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start? It's been a while. Well, like we say, it's been a while every time.
Yeah, it has. That's okay. Well, it's because we just can't get our lives together. It's okay.
It's turning out to be a weird day.
A weird, wild, wacky Wednesday.
Yeah.
We record
Even though
on
this
Wednesdays.
is... Yeah.
Well, we record on Wednesdays.
Yes.
So, but you're hearing this on a Saturday.
Heck yeah. You take it. You take it from here. You start.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Healthcare horrors. Murder. All right, welcome back to another episode of Healthcare Horrors. My name is Alicia Carosella. I'm a brand... Why am I saying I'm a brand specialist?
We could switch.
I'm telling you,
today.
like, this is like totally like, what is that movie where they switch?
Freaky Friday?
Yeah, we're Freaky Wednesdaying it up. I'm not a brand anything. I'm a training and development specialist, and I cannot get my ducks in a row today.
It's all right. I'm Ashley. I'm gonna go with a veteran brand specialist today.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
And Dolan is not joining us today, so it's just us two.
Yeah, and everything's falling apart without him.
Everything is falling apart without you, Dolan.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's okay. We'll get through it. We always do. Last time, we talked about Mayuki Ishikawa. And today, the dude with 3 first names, that's what I'm calling him.
Yes, he does have 3 first names. I know. When I was doing the research, I kept like I'm like, was it William George Davis?
Yes, that is who we're talking about today.
And this happened a lot more recently than a lot of the other things that we've talked about. So I think all this went down in 2018. Mm-hmm. There's not a ton of background information on him in general. The only thing I really know about him, and there are so many articles, but every article on the internet simply talks about what he did, his crimes. And there's a Hulu series called The Lesson is Murder, and he's featured on that first episode. And even in that episode, they don't go into detail like about his past. Everything is centered on his crimes. So what I do know about him is that he was born on February 3rd, 1984, and that he is a decorated Army veteran.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yep. So, I mean, and they don't even talk about that in the Hulu series at all. I just, it's a CBS article, and it says, everything you need to know. East Texas nurse arrested for murder, decorated Army veteran, but it doesn't go any deeper into any details anywhere else except for like headlines.
Yeah, in the show on Hulu, The Lesson is Murder. So the first episode's about a team of criminologists studying his case, and yeah, they like interview some people in his life, like his mom and his ex-wife and stuff, and we get like some slight details of, school and stuff, but yeah, I don't even think they mentioned he was a veteran or anything.
And I think, and it's weird because his mom was like super cryptic in answering questions. Like she's like, I know what did change and why he started acting this way, but I'll let him tell you. It's his story. And it's like, why are we interviewing you if you're not going to give us the tea?
Right. And this does take place in Texas. We have that he was at least born in Longview, Texas.
Yes.
In February, like you said. But
for sure. And so that makes him an Aquarius. Aquarius are clever and analytical. They like to improve what's already working well and push boundaries. I think he took that in the opposite direction a bit.
Yeah, I would say he pushed his boundaries a little bit.
He didn't improve any processes.
No.
But he did do that. So, yeah, I'll let you get into kind of the nitty gritty and I'll chime in with what I know and we'll go.
Cool. So his mother that they interviewed in the show, her name was Brenda. He did have a father that was in the picture. We don't have a name. At least I don't have a name on him.
Nope.
But I guess he did put a lot of pressure on Billy or William to just not fail. So a lot of pressure there. And the family also struggled financially. And William was also the oldest of 4 boys. He played football in high school, and it seemed like for the most part he was popular and liked by teachers and classmates. Maybe he kind of came across as like the class clown. He was always joking, trying to make people laugh and liked being the center of attention. So fast forward to an interview with his wife. She just kind of touches on how he was funny and joked a lot. But then in another interview in the show, they're interviewing one of the nurses that was in the residency with him, and he was talking about how William put like a laxative substance in one of their classmates' drinks, and he would just kind of take jokes a little too far. That's not cool.
For sure. He did have a terrible haircut in high school. He looked so different in that high school photo, the one they kept showing of him in like that blue convertible. Like he looks very different than he does now. But I mean, you just seem like your normal, average high school kid, like no issues really. And then obviously somehow went into the Army at some point. We don't know any information about that. But yeah, like, and a lot of his peers actually at the hospital he was working at when all of this stuff went down, when he committed all these crimes, said that he was always like willing to lend a hand and like always, just super helpful. Yeah, for the most part, it seemed like he was charming and he was well liked. Also in the Hulu show, though, they had that interview kind of towards the end, talking about one of his past relationships before he eventually gets married. And I guess he was like really charming at first, and then he quickly got manipulative and like exhibiting narcissistic behavior. So like love bombing in the beginning and then just like controlling, possessive. That was the word. It just like escaped my mind. Well, and it's interesting too because it just reminds me of, just other people that I know, and it's like people can be really nice to their friends and to their mothers and their, siblings and whatever, but in a romantic relationship can be very different people. So I think for all of that information to come out and then for him to, have done all of these things, really shocked his family and his friends. And once that early relationship ended, I guess he even tried driving his car into the house, but he claims he was trying to, I think, kill himself by driving it into a tree in front of their house. So mixed stories there, but still either way, that was not a good way to handle that situation. No, so it seems like he has very poor coping skills. But he does have a history of being like on anxiety meds. And actually right before all of this starts coming to a real head, he texts a friend and is like, can I get some anxiety meds without me coming to be seen by you? Which is obviously a no-go, but there were some red flags. He knew that something wasn't right in his mind, but so... So fast forwarding, because we don't have a whole bunch on his history, by age 32 in 2016, he is a nurse at this point, or at least a student. I think he's graduated by now. He gets married to his wife, who usually handles the finances in the relationship, and she starts letting William take over. And then this is when they kind of start seeing, like, as the investigation started and they like kind of look back and try and figure out motives. 2016 is kind of where they start seeing this pattern of financial stresses with life changes and murders in the hospital. So at this point he is working at Christus. Is that what it's not Christus, it's Christus. Christus. I think it's Christus, but okay. All right. Could be Christus. So at this point, he starts working at Christus Trinity Mother Frances Hospital in Tyler, Texas. He's working the night shift in the ICU, so 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which usually seems like that's when it's just easier to get away with stuff. So before he gets married, or at least before 2016, he does file bankruptcy at some point, because he is $135,000 in debt. $135,700 in debt. That is crazy. So he kind of sounds like he maybe gets himself out of that rut. He gets married
Also in 2016, he gets his master's degree in nursing as a nurse practitioner. He and his wife buy a house. According to some of his coworkers, he gets a new car. His mom claims that they get like a $40,000 pool installed at their house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, yeah. So
Just
lots of things.
Living well beyond his means.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So in 2017, his wife also gets pregnant. So there's so much happening in such a small amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why someone would get stressed out. So during this time, a patient nearly dies, and speculations lead to it being one of Davis's first victims. Like you said, he was on anxiety medications and claimed to another nurse or his friend that one night he needed them before, quote, he starts getting into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So June 2016, there's 5 patients who die or nearly die from things like insulin overdoses, and it's just like back to back. Like he did not wait a month in between killing someone, or he just went for it. June 25th. Well, I don't want to.
Yeah, well, he just kind of goes off the rails. Like
Mm-hmm.
as soon as all of these things happen in his life, these big stressors, big purchases, wife getting pregnant with their daughter, and that is when it starts to just go patient B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm. So one of his first victims, Mr. Saunders, William had to check his insulin levels, and he ends up injecting him with air, which ends up being like his main way to kill people.
Mm-hmm. Which is, it's interesting because like he knew he just had to check his insulin levels, and he just chose to go in there and just do something else.
Yeah. So another victim, John Lafferty, he does the exact same thing, and in the autopsy, they find that Lafferty died from an air embolism. So there's suspicious deaths. The hospital really can't, put a point on anyone specific. So as hospital suspicions grow, they do install more security cameras. I would imagine there's already security cameras, but they install more cameras around the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So that is when a pattern starts to emerge with the patients and one particular nurse who would go into their rooms, and it was usually patients that he was not assigned to.
Yeah, so they weren't his patients. They were just in the facility,
Mm-hmm.
and he decided.
Yeah. He had no reason to be in their room, so maybe that's one way he thought he could
Get away with it.
is he's not in their paperwork, but also down the road, maybe it was a motive that he wanted to advance his career by killing other nurses' patients, but his patients were living, so it makes him look better. Who knows?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too when they installed those cameras. I wonder if they told the staff.
Yeah, I wonder.
Because it seems like maybe not, because he didn't seem phased, and they were really... Because obviously the cameras don't go in patient rooms, but in the hallways, and
Yeah.
it's like, come on, man. You're the last one in there.
Mm-hmm. So one of the cameras ends up catching him going into a patient's room, and shortly after he leaves the patient's room, the patient starts coding. So when a coding team gets there and tries saving the patient, the camera catches William just standing in the doorway of the patient's room, just watching everything happen. That's
Like
so
everybody
creepy.
else is all hands on deck
Yeah.
trying to save this man's life. And he's just got his hands in his pockets, chilling, watching him in the hallway, leaning on the door frame, just like lurking. Like
Lurking for sure.
it's really strange.
It is strange. So I don't know. It sounds like his life was kind of spiraling out of control. So maybe this was his way to regain control over his life by having control over other people's lives.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But I think it was more subconscious for him because, like later on as we get into this, he describes like in the interview with Dr. Brianna Fox, like that it felt euphoric.
Yes.
To do this. And so I think he was just getting pleasure out of it more than it was even, control. But I mean, maybe part of the euphoria was from the control.
Sure. Well, yeah, like you said, he had a lot of narcissistic qualities. So I think there's just a lot of things that gave him pleasure out of this. You know, the euphoria, the control. Maybe it was a way to advance his career. He claimed to his wife it was a way to keep people in the hospital because he was frustrated with the hospital administration that he wasn't getting compensated fairly or wasn't getting enough hours. So he wanted to supposedly keep people sick so he could reassure his hours.
Yeah.
Which sounds silly to me.
It is super silly and super made up because he was, he was doing this to patients who were on an upward trend.
Yeah.
Who were healing or people who should have survived. And when when patients come into the hospital, they assess them for like their chance of survival depending on what, is going on, what their current health status is, age, things like that. What is the health factor, the emergency. And it's people who had like a 99% survival rate that were dying. And then on top of that, all of his coworkers were testifying that they were working abundant overtime and they, were on staff as part-time, but were still working full-time hours and getting overtime on top of it. So it seems like he did have the ability to work as many hours as he wanted. So I think that after sitting in jail for 2.5 years, he decided that was the excuse he was going to give his wife when he finally admitted to all of these murders.
Right. So we don't know exactly how the investigation all goes down other than they start linking some of the dead patients to him or the patients that were doing fine, then all of a sudden have a sudden turn of events. He gets arrested from his home in April of 2018 after being suspended during the investigation, and his nursing license gets revoked. And his fellow nurses couldn't even believe that this was happening. So they even start a GoFundMe and raise $10,000 to get him out of this mess.
So like, where'd that money go to? His attorneys? They never say, but I assume, but like, dang.
I'm just gonna hope that it maybe went to the victims' families.
That would be where it should go.
We'll go with that. So some of the autopsies on the victims showed air blocks in their brain. And it sounds like through the whole trial process and everything, William held on to his innocence.
Oh, yeah. And he was, telling his wife, like, he can't wait to get back into nursing when he gets out of jail. And she said it was so weird how he was, he had all these goals and life plans. And the whole time, like, he knew he had murdered these people.
October 19th, 2021, he's 37. He is found guilty on 4 counts of capital murder and eventually sentenced to death October 27th, 2021. And I had to look up what specifically capital murder was. That's just... Capital murder defines certain forms of aggravated murder in which the perpetrator is eligible for the death penalty.
Yeah. Yep. And so with that, I think he appealed that.
Did he?
Yeah. And I think it's ongoing as of right now. But in his interview with Dr. Brianna Fox, he admits that these crimes he's been convicted of are not the first times he's killed somebody. And that he killed an elderly woman who was 96 years old in 2016, maybe. I think it was. And so they are able to go back and, you know, reopen that case and identify who that woman was. And in his interview, he says, you know, like, I thought and I don't know if this is BS or not, but he said, like, she was suffering and I just wanted her, you know, to be out of pain. She's 96. She lived a good life. And, you know, I just didn't want to see her suffer. So I thought I was just doing the right thing. And he said, I think that opened up a door I shouldn't have opened.
Right. Yeah, he claimed that one to be a mercy killing, but then the rest of them were definitely not.
I think he just found out that he liked the feeling of killing somebody and playing God. And he says, I shouldn't have played God, but, you know, like, in this whole time he's in this interview, there's no emotion on his face. I mean, he's smiling, like, he's kind of proud. And he's plain face just telling you this, like, about killing these people. And he's like, it's not right. But so, like, the words he's saying are, it's not right, but his face and his body posture
his
and
demeanor,
it's not saying, like, he gives two cares in the world about killing any of these people. And I think he's now, like, getting off on the ability to control his narrative and his story and say that he did it now and take ownership for that notoriety, because it's giving him that attention that his ego so desperately wants.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I didn't even think about that now, controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's just senseless. Like, there's, you know, and I wish we knew more about his childhood and his background that could maybe point to, you know, why he was this way. But he seemed like, I mean, just a normal teenager. I feel like all teenagers are kind of angsty.
Yeah.
But he seemed a little more.
Yeah. Maybe, like, who knows what his dad was really like. We just know there was a lot of pressure to not fail. And, you know, he started struggling financially, but then he started living beyond his means and buying all these nice things, and maybe to kind of show that he wasn't failing, even though he clearly wasn't doing so well, and it just sent him out of control.
Definitely. And he even admits, he's like, oh, I'm terrible with finances. It's like, okay, so instead of doing something about being bad at finances, you just start acting insane. You just start killing people and, like, looking for a way to fill the void because you know you're not measuring up.
Sounds logical to me, a logical way to handle stress.
That's what I said. He's got really poor coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, and it sucks for all of those families. And, you know, there was a guy who did survive.
Yeah, there were a couple people that did survive. So prosecutors claimed that William Davis could have had up to 11 victims, and 7 of those were dead. So some of them did survive, but they have, you know, like, brain injury, so they just can't function fully on their own, or there's still consequences that they're just living every day with.
But yeah, it seems like the people who end up murdering elderly people have, like, a big issue with elderly people at some point in their lives. But I think for him, he was just looking for the easiest victims, which is, like, a hallmark trait of narcissists.
Yeah, so the 4 victims that he was charged for was John Lafferty, Ronald Clark, Christopher Greenaway, and Joseph Kalina.
Yeah, and I feel like there's more he'll probably admit to. I don't know, why not? Because
down the road, you never know.
He already admitted to another one, so.
So appeal or not, he is currently still serving time in Allen B. Polinsky Unit in Polk City, Texas.
Yep, and that's where he shall be.
That is where he shall be until, I guess, death. Because I really don't think they're going to let him appeal that.
Well, I mean, like, so the appeal was open at the time of the documentary aired, but I mean, court appeals sit open for a long time, but I just don't see them, like, approving.
Doesn't he want to just appeal, like, not getting the death penalty and just continue life in prison? Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So at least, yeah, he's not getting out regardless.
No, but he's got like 4 little kids.
4?
I think there's 4. There's a picture at the end, but there was 4.
Oh, yeah, I do
knew for sure there
remember.
was 2, but there was a picture of him with 4 little kids.
Oh, man.
So, well, don't do anything that William George Davis would do, and I think anyone with 3 first names is suspicious. Immediately suspicious.
If you're super stressed about your finances and you got a lot going on in life, there are ways to handle it. Just take a breath, breathe through it.
Try a book about finances.
Yeah.
Try paying your bills. Try not living outside of your means.
Or talk to your family or friends.
Ask someone for help. So,
all right. Well, good find on the Hulu documentary and another kind of recent story. So I guess I don't really know if there will be any developments, but
I mean, the only developments I think really will be like if he
the appeal.
Yeah, well, and if he admits to more murders or is convicted of that 96-year-old woman's death.
Oh, yeah. So up next, we will be talking about Stefan Letter, and we're going to Germany for that one.
We sure are.
But for now, we're going to put a cap on this super weird day.
And I'm still not working for the brand team, so.
And I am not a veteran. I lied to everybody.
We are just doing whatever we want today and saying whatever comes out of our brains.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't do anything that William George Davis would do, and murder.
Thank you for listening to Healthcare Horrors, brought to you by Atlas MedStaff. Just a reminder, we are not healthcare professionals. We are just fans of true crime, talking about some of history's darkest moments in healthcare. Stay tuned, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Healthcare Horrors. Murder.